We are back. It's been a long time coming. I am here to share my birth story. Finally, I'm here to share it. It feels like it has been so long since I've sat down to record a podcast episode. We did a lot of prep work before I went on maternity leave to try and get as many episodes done before as we could. So I feel like it's been 6 months since I actually sat down and recorded an episode. So it's a wild, wild experience to be sitting down doing something that I love to do, feeling like a completely different person as I do it. So we're going to just kind of work through that. I have been putting off recording this episode for so long. I kept putting it off because I wanted to wait until I felt like, okay, I want to have it together. I want to feel like I have our routine together. I want to have a system. I want to make sure that I know when would be the best time to record. I want to feel good in my skin when I jump onto a video. And that it didn't happen. Some days I felt good. Some days I didn't. Sometimes we're not really on a schedule. We're just kind of going with the flow. So that's how this episode's going to be. It's going to be, we go with the flow. I'm going to break it into 2 parts just because we're at the point where I am 4 months out of being a mom and there's just a lot I want to talk about. And I know some of y'all might be like, ugh, with the mom content already. Sorry, but that's what I'm here for. And it's a part of who I am now, and I want to share about it. So I'm going to spend the first part of this talking about my birth story. And just to let you know, it is a positive birth story. I know sometimes when I was pregnant, I didn't want to listen to anyone's birth story, whether it was good or bad. But if you are someone who wants to listen, but you kind of want to make sure you know what you're getting into, this is a positive, kind of funny, ridiculous birth story. And we're going to get into that. Part 2, I'm going to take time to go through your actual questions that you had. I had a lot of people ask me about labor, which I think I'll answer most of those questions on this episode. But then I had questions about just motherhood, how I prepared, things that I felt like went really well, things I wish had been different, just all of that. And I want to make sure that I take time for those questions, but also sometimes when I'm taking questions from everyone, I can get off topic. And I don't want to do that with the story. I want to tell you all the story, give it to you unfiltered, and just bring you all on this journey. Those of you who have been following along with my birth, with my pregnancy, I have been really working towards my birth plan of having a birth without any medication, doing a natural birth in the hospital, but still a natural birth. I hired a doula. I've been doing hypnobirthing techniques, hypnotherapy, where I'm meditating and doing breath work in order to help visualize and process a healthy, happy, natural birth. That was the game plan. Obviously, a healthy, happy baby was truly all that I wanted. Ideally, natural birth, but obviously we had a plan B if we needed to do other things. We were open to it, but yes. All right, we made it all the way to week 40 here. So week 40, that's when a lot of people give birth. I feel like not everyone knows that. So a lot of people give birth by week 40 or earlier. And at this point, I had still not packed my hospital bag, y'all. I had still not packed my hospital bag, which is really, don't do like me. Pack your dang hospital bag before the 40-week appointment because you could go into labor at 36 weeks or earlier. I packed for my 40-week appointment because I just had a feeling that okay, I definitely need to pack. We might go to this doctor's appointment this afternoon and not come home. They might send me straight to the hospital. So we packed our bag up that morning. I started having what I guess was contractions at this point. And I had these things called Braxton Hicks contractions beforehand. Those are normal. You can have them earlier on. It's still a contraction. It's just not an actual contraction for labor. It's basically your body practicing for labor. So it's really hard to figure out, okay, what is this? Is this Braxton Hicks contraction? In my mind, when it came to giving birth, everything you watch on TV is just bullshit. It's bullshit. Everything you watch on TV is okay, I'm going to wait for my water to break. I'm going to be out in the middle of Target and my water's going to break. And then I'm going to know I'm in labor. And then you're going to go to the hospital and have a baby in 5 minutes. No. That's not the case. Your water doesn't even necessarily have to break before you're going to the hospital in labor, okay? We'll get to that in a sec. But we made it to the 40 weeks. I started to have these cramps that were actually contractions. I didn't know that they're the early stages of labor that can last anywhere from 24 hours or less, or up to, a week or 2. And you can actually be in labor for that amount of time. It's just the early stage of labor. No one tells me that. No one tells you that when you're going into having your first kid, but that's the case. I'll tell you. I will leave you everything on the table right now. That can happen. So I started having these. Essentially, it feels like a really intense period cramp. There are contractions. As far as the timing your contractions, the distance apart, they're still like 30 minutes to even an hour sometimes. So pretty far apart in the grand scheme of things. If you don't know, typically by 7 to 10 minutes, that's when it's like revving up into actual active labor and when you really want to make sure you're going to the hospital. So started having those. I went to my appointment that day. She checked me. She's like, you're already dilated. Again, I think that when you're dilated, that means that you're going to give birth. No, you could actually be dilated and still go another week without giving birth. That's crazy to me, but it's true. I basically was sent home. We had to unpack our bag that we had diligently packed our whole car up, and we unpacked it. And I went through my first night of having contractions throughout the night. They were every 20 minutes, so still in the grand scheme of things, kind of far apart. But for thinking about how many hours are in a day, you have 24 hours in a day, and you have a contraction every 20 minutes. That's a lot of contractions in one day, right? Well, that's what happens. The thing about the contractions is as they start to get closer together, as far as like 20 minutes apart, 10 minutes apart, blah, 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 the intensity starts to pick up. So I go from being able to order Chipotle before my appointment while still having contractions to keeling over and not being able to walk when trying to have contractions. So there's a big scale of contraction pain here. At this point, the first night, they're pretty bad, but they're still breathable. I'm still able to talk through the contraction, and I'm able to get a little bit of sleep, some cat naps here and there. My doula was super supportive. Love my doula, Debbie doula. She basically helped talk me through staying hydrated and eating because she said you might lose your appetite later and we don't want that. So I got through that first night. We go into day number 2, that Tuesday. This is when my husband is working from home at this point because he told everyone that we're in that, I'm in early stage of labor, but he still had video appointments. He's a doctor PA, so he still had patients. And I was literally in the background having contractions. It's really funny to look back on. I was like, don't mind me. I'm just in the background. I'm going to go draw myself a bath and have some contractions in it for the next couple hours. And I'm going to probably pop over to the shower and do the same thing over and over again. So I just stayed in water the whole time because that felt the most comfortable for me. Going through these contractions, squeezing something, some sort of counteractive pressure was very helpful too. Tom would push on my back. He used the Theragun, the little massage gun on my back and my hips a lot. That really helped. My exercise ball was huge. He finishes his work day and my contractions continue to get worse. My doula was basically telling me, just keep track of them. When they weren't as bad, I wasn't having to time them every 10 minutes. But when they were 10 minutes on the regular and they started to cut down, that was when we started to think, okay, this is getting more intense. My doula was like, you're not able to speak during these contractions. So that's definitely a sign. And so Tom started to pack the car. This is around like 1 a.m. at this point. I did not sleep. Tom did get a little bit of sleep. My pain was crazy. I was ready to go. I was ready to have this baby out of me. And yeah, so we got to the point where I jumped. My contractions jumped from being like 7 minutes to being like 5 minutes by the time I'm in the car. We had a 20-minute drive to the hospital and I am gripping onto the steering wheel handle in the passenger seat. I can't even sit fully on the seat. I am like about to have this baby. I'm like, Tom, get there now. He gets there. Basically, they were like, okay, leave your stuff. We're going to park your car for you. They do valet parking. Just get yourself checked in and then you'll get your stuff back up in the room. You'll be good. So they went on the thought of, we have plenty of time. We did not have plenty of time. We got checked into the room at 2 a.m. We didn't get checked in. We were in triage, which was like the room that you go to before you get checked into a room. And by the time we're in triage and my doula gets up there, I am on all fours on the hospital bed. Yes, on all fours on the hospital bed, birthing this baby. Tom describes it as, I have never heard you make these types of sounds. Very animalistic. I was grunting. And y'all, it just felt natural. I know that sounds weird, but I just felt like I knew what to do. And my doula just kept telling me, like, listen to your body. Like, do you feel like you need to push now? Yes, I definitely need to push. So I got down on all fours and I pushed out this baby, and my water broke at the same time that he came out. And my husband, at this point, we didn't know. So my husband grabs my baby. They're like, okay, what is it? What is it, Dad? It's a boy. They put the baby on my chest, a baby boy. I am so dazed and confused at this point, but 45 minutes have gone by. And again, I don't know the time at this point, but he was born at 2:46 a.m. We had checked in the hospital at 2. So 46 minutes went by. He popped out real quick and he was on my chest. And it was such a beautiful experience, but at the same time, gross. Like, you're literally just disgusting, but you don't care. Like, I did not care. I didn't even know anyone was around me when I was giving birth. Actually, there wasn't even a doctor in the room at first. They ran in because they weren't expecting me to give birth that fast. The boy popped out quick. And having him on my chest, I look at him and I see a little dimple chin on his chin. And seeing that, and my husband has a dimple chin, my heart just like, I was so excited that we had this sweet boy in my arms. It was such a surreal experience. He was able to immediately latch onto me in order to breastfeed, which was really cool. Again, all these little things that started happening, it's like my instincts started to kick in more than I thought they would. And so, like, the positions I was in, my breathing, the sounds I was making, they helped me with getting him latched. But like, his instincts kicked in with that, which is just such a cool experience. And he was actually awake and alive, which was so crazy. Like, you go through the experience of, yes, I know there's been a baby kicking in here for 9 months, but to actually have that baby out in this world on your chest and look like your husband is pretty surreal. It was a great experience at that point, but it was wild to be like in the triage room. So we still never were in a room. We just kind of stayed in there. And we had none of our stuff. And I told y'all I planned everything, right? I had printed out our birth plan in Christmas themed, might I add. Christmas theme. I wrote our birth wishes down for all the doctors. I had made little snack bags for all the nurses that I was going to give out. We had a speaker that we were going to have. I ended up making 3 different birth playlists. I had 3 different birth playlists. One was going to be like, there were 3 different vibes. And I stand by the birth playlists. I still play them now. But we had none of that when we birthed. I didn't even have a gown on. I didn't have a gown on. I had my sweatpants and a crop top when I gave birth. It's just crazy to think back, like everything that I planned, everything that we planned out, and none of that really mattered at that point. I went to labor in the middle of the night. That Monday when we were having contractions, I didn't tell anyone. Even throughout the pregnancy, and I stand by this decision too, I didn't tell a lot of people our actual due date because I felt so much pressure about that. I think our due date was the 19th and he was born the 20th. But like, I didn't tell people our due date, and it was because I didn't want people texting me like, oh my gosh, are they here yet? Is your baby here yet? Is it a boy or a girl? And just sending me a bunch of questions. And even the people that did know, some of them did do that and it was annoying, but they did it to my husband, not me. And then when it came to the labor, I wanted to just be really focused on me and Tom and our baby coming into the world. I didn't want to focus on like who's going to visit and who's coming to the hospital and trying to coordinate visitation. Like, that didn't feel aligned with what I wanted this experience to be for me and my husband. And again, I stand by that decision. That was a great thing for us to be able to spend our first almost like 24 hours with just our little unit, our little family unit. And I didn't tell anyone. And the benefit of having a baby in the middle of the night is no one was that upset about it. I think if I had him maybe during the day, my mom would have been like, why didn't you tell me you were in labor? But since it was in the middle of the night, that next morning, I literally FaceTimed my mom and showed this baby to her. And she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you gave birth. I think that was a more fun way for me to experience it because I got to have the decision on when and who I shared it with at first. Someone asked, how did people feel about that? I don't know. They could have talked shit about me behind my back and hated it, but I don't care. So I don't know. I don't know how other people felt about it, but I personally felt great about that decision. How did these contractions differ from the Braxton ones? Okay, so the Braxton Hicks contractions, when you change position, I would have those earlier on. I think around like 20 weeks, I started having them like maybe a couple times a week. I would have it and it would just kind of stop you in your tracks. And I would either sit down or just kind of breathe through it or go lay down, and really helped it go away. With these other ones in the beginning, that first day that I started having them, it didn't matter what I did, that contraction was there. I also felt it more through my whole body. Like I could feel it in my back and my front, more so than just like a lower, like right near my uterus, like contraction. It felt more all over, if that makes sense. So that was a difference, but I didn't really know the difference either. And that was the funny thing about doctors will ask you like, oh, have you been feeling Braxton Hicks contractions? And I'm like, I don't even know what those are. What was laboring at home like, and how long did you labor at home? Laboring at home, again, I have nothing else to compare it to, but I loved it. I wasn't like having a great time, but we had all of our Christmas holiday lights out, and we had our tree. And I remember this one moment, I was by myself. I told Tom to go to sleep. It wasn't helpful at that point. So I told him to go lay down, and I had my exercise ball, and I just was going through a contraction, and it was tough. And then I kind of sat up and looked at the Christmas lights, and I was like, wow, like I can't wait to bring my baby home and like be under this Christmas tree with him. Like I can't, or with them. Again, I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl at the time. And so that made everything feel, I don't know, I was able to be more calm. I was able to be in my element. Compared to how I felt in the hospital, I didn't feel like I was on edge. I felt like I was able to listen to my body. Okay, my body needs to go to the bath. I need to eat some food. I need to pet my dog. I need to, lay with my husband. Just all those things felt very natural, and I didn't feel confined to a hospital room. So I loved being able to labor at home. I would have loved to have given birth at home, but like we were kind of finding the compromise with me and Tom, and the compromise was labor at home as much as possible, give birth in the hospital, have a doula, and all those things were great. How bad was getting an epidural if you got one? I didn't get an epidural. Woo! The birth was completely natural, unmedicated, and that was the plan. If I had been in the hospital for that amount of time, I may have been like, okay, give me something, because it was painful. But by the time we got to the hospital, it would have been too late to even get an epidural because this baby came in 45 minutes. Okay. What went wrong versus what went right? I don't want to say anything went wrong, because I think everything always works out the way it's supposed to be. It's just the way it's supposed to work out. Things that were different or surprising with my doula, I ended up not having her come to our house because I was laboring at home and I was in the bathtub so much. I phoned her a lot on speakerphone, and she would just be like, okay, here's what you can do. There was one point I had really bad back pain, and so she helped me get into a position in order to get the baby in a better position for birth. And she showed me what to do, but this was all on the phone. It just felt good to be able to be in my home in my own element. I think if I had labored any longer at home, I would have had her come over. At that point, I just felt good. I was just listening to my body. She was assuring me. So that was something that was not wrong. It was just different than I expected. I ended up not having my doula come to the house. She'd been to our house before. She came to our house after. But just like the actual labor, like contractions and stuff, she didn't end up being there, but she was there in a different way, support-wise. She was at the hospital with us too and helped me through that labor. Other stuff that was, I think one thing that went wrong was we timed our contractions wrong. I was not timing like when you were supposed to, apparently. There's an app for that. I was just trying to use the timer app on my phone. There's some kind of contraction timer app that's easier to time them. It made it to where we were questioning, like Tom was like, I don't think that was 7 minutes or 6 minutes apart. And he's like, I think that you think that it was, but it wasn't really. I'm like, Tom, it was. And that's the reason we waited so long, was that he should have listened to me. But he knew I wanted to wait. And so he was trying to support me with that decision. And yeah, so that was the thing, I guess, that went wrong. It was just something we didn't expect. And it was why, as soon as we got to the hospital, the sweetest security guard was putting me in, helping me. She wanted to put me in the wheelchair to go in, because you have to go into a wheelchair. And I'm like, hold on, I'm having a contraction. And I'm holding onto the side of the car as soon as we got there, have a contraction. And she's like rubbing my back and she's like, breathe through it, baby, breathe through it, baby. That was like exactly what I needed. Just that kind of like, I love women. I just love women. Like, she didn't know me. She didn't know my name. she just was there for me. And that was something, she helped us at the end too, but that was something that was amazing. And yeah, that was something that went right. Oh, another thing that went wrong when we left. So we had to stay in the hospital 2 nights because I don't remember why, but we had to stay in the hospital 2 nights. Tom knows the doctor reasons, but when we left and you bring the baby, we didn't know how to put our sweet baby boy in the car seat. So that was an issue. But the same angel that helped me through my contraction helped us set up our car seat. A lot of things went right. I just think the timing of things went really right. The fact that I was able to do exactly what I wanted when it came to giving birth, the fact that my baby was born and healthy, and that was just such a blessing. How was Tom while you were laboring or birthing? Tom was great. When I was laboring at home, he wanted to help with a couple different things because I told him I want help with stuff. And one of the things was like my back would hurt. So he'd like rub my back or he'd do the gun. But then there were certain times where I was like, I just need to be alone. Like, I just need to be alone sometimes. And so he was good, but I feel like I was kind of like having to do my own thing. And that kind of felt better for me. I yelled at him with the contraction timing thing because like we called my doula and she was like, I think y'all need to go to the hospital now and I was like, I told you. So that was just a funny experience where he was trying to help me with the contraction timing and supporting me staying home as long as I wanted to, and end up kind of pushing to a little bit too far on that end. The birth itself, how was Tom with birthing? I mean, he was great. I wanted to do like the skin to skin. We didn't give him a bath or anything, our baby boy. So that was really great. And then Tom cut our baby's cord, and me and Tom picked the name in the hospital. One thing that was different that a lot of people might not know is we did not have a name picked out. So we didn't know if we were going to have a boy or girl. And every time we would sit down with names, I just like couldn't connect with any of them. I just was like, I don't know. And I don't think I want to know until I see him, until I meet him face to face. And that's how it worked for us. So the first night they were like, what's his name? And I'm like, I don't know. It was such a weird experience. We told a few people we had our baby boy and they were like, oh, what's his name? And we're like, we don't know yet. And so that was something where some people just tried to start giving suggestions. I'm like, no, we know, we just need to talk together. So that first night with our baby boy, we had a couple names that we had written down, which we came with names, y'all. It's not we had nothing. I just wasn't sure. I wasn't set on anything yet. But that first night with our sweet boy, we were debating about a couple names. And then one of them, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, this is it. This is the one. I looked up the meaning of the name and Tom had already looked it up. I looked it up and it was exactly what I wanted to hear. We named him Emmett Cole, and Emmett means universal truth. And it's super powerful name to me. I just really love it. As soon as that clicked that night, like this is his name, that's all we could see. When we would see him, we would call him by that name at that point forward. We were like, this is definitely his name. So we didn't really waver too much at that point. So after the first night, we were set. We were set with it for sure. Someone asked, did I use any techniques that I learned from hypnobirthing? So yes, the meditation I did for hypnobirthing was super helpful for the actual birth itself. It helped me through the contractions. Those hurt, y'all. Contractions are no joke. They are no joke. They only get more intense and more painful. And being able to have the mindset around breathing through that pain and not letting it get ahead of you and, allowing your body to do what it needs to do, that was all really helpful with me through my breathwork practice and through hypnotherapy. So thank God for hypnobirthing. I'm a big fan of it and definitely will be doing that again to prep myself for birth. So overall, I'm very, very grateful for our experience. I'm so in awe of my body. And that's a weird thing to say right now because 16 weeks out, I haven't thought about this experience and I've actually been really negative about my body lately. And your body changes. Like my ribs were bigger, my hips are bigger, my body doesn't look like it did before. And it's constantly changing. Like every month, my body has looked different and that's been really hard for me. But coming back to this story, it's a reminder of how powerful we truly are, especially as women, how powerful we truly are. Seeing what my body is capable of has proven to me that okay, you are powerful and more powerful than you give yourself credit. You had this intention of giving birth naturally, and you did it. And the only reason I want to help hype myself up now is because as women, it's easy to water down and belittle our accomplishments. Birth, y'all. How are more people not talking about birth like it is the most wild, magical thing in the world? Why are we not more in awe of women? Why are women not seen and praised and protected on a more large scale globally? Because everywhere you look around, you see women, especially women with kids, and it's like, y'all are powerful. You went through this experience. You are truly a portal to another world. You bring life into this world. This world would not exist. These people would not exist without women. And yet those huge, huge moments are just not talked about. That blows my mind. That honestly blows my mind. So when I see moms, I just think differently. I just look around. I'm like, wow. It's an amazing, amazing experience. And it's something that I feel more connected to my own mom than I expected to be. I call her so much, just being like, wow. Like, I can't imagine. She was my age when she had her first kid too. And so you think your parents are just like all, adults their whole lives. You just think they're adults because that's how you see them as a kid. And then you start to realize when you're a parent yourself, like, oh, they had no idea what they were doing either. And it gives you this softness to your heart, this level of empathy that I didn't have before for my parents. And, I'm a child of divorce, and seeing what they went through, it's like, it probably wasn't easy, It's not. Having kids is hard. Going through birth is hard, but just parenting and motherhood, that is where it can get really hard. But it's also beautiful. And that's how I feel like my birth story was. I feel like it was beautiful, even the hardest parts. So I'm glad I could share that part with you. I have so much more to share about just y'all's questions. You asked more about the story behind his name and just the naming process in the hospital. Like, how does that work? What were moments after birth like? Any of my memories? How were we able to communicate each other's needs? Oh, these are sharing responsibilities, especially with a newborn. These are really good questions. Yeah. So I want to come with those with part 2. So make sure you come back and listen to this next episode. It's talking more about the early stages of motherhood, how that was for me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, things that I feel like I'm very, very grateful to have experienced, and some of the things that are a little bit more messy that I don't feel like enough people talk about. So that'll be in the next episode. Thanks y'all for being here and holding space for me sharing my birth story. I would love to hear your story if you have one. Now that I'm not pregnant, I am open to hearing any and all birth stories. Yeah, I'm starting to hear them all, and they're wild. Every single one is such a different experience. And so it's interesting to be a part of something, motherhood. And it's like, there's so many shared experiences within motherhood, but at the same token, your experience is your own, and it's like no one else's. So I try and remember that when I'm sharing, and not to project everything. Don't take everything that I say as Bible, like this is the only way. It's more so, this is what I went through. So thank you for letting me share, and I'll see you guys on the crazy next episode. It's going to be a good one.